Hey everybody, it's GauntletX, and welcome to the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth Arena Open. This event is a competitive Lord of the Rings sealed event where you need to reach 7 wins before 3 losses. If you do, you'll gain entry to the Arena Open Day 2 event, where you'll be competing in best of 3 drafts of the set, with a chance to win up to $2,000. In this video, I'll be going through my entire run of the event, going over deck building and gameplay decisions and post-commentary, so without further ado, let's get into the event. So here's a look at the rares for the sealed pool. Not very exciting. We do have a Sauron, which is very powerful, and a Frodo that's pretty nice, but the other 4 are not cards I'm super excited about. They're okay cards if you're already in that direction though, so the only thing to really keep an eye on there out of the rares is to see if a blue-black-red deck is possible and a black-white deck is possible. So I immediately hopped into things here, just going color to color, checking out just a rough guideline of each color, and white looks real consistent, great curve of creatures, and several decent non-creature plays, particularly Reprieve, and that's about it. It's mainly the creature curve out of white that looks really nice. It's got the Frodo, it's got Samwise, it's got Rosie Cotton. Looking at the blue now, this looks much less consistent. These are not my favorite blue cards, and the curve is kind of all over the place, so kind of move right along there. Out of black, we have some pretty good cards. We have Uruk-hai Berserker and Nazgul making me pretty excited. The creatures that enter the battlefield and have the ring tempt you are great. We also have Voracious Fellbeast as a huge finisher, a couple land cyclers, a lot of great stuff going on in black. Checking out the red, we've got a couple Foray of Orcs, which is great. Rohirrim with a solid enter the battlefield tempt trigger. The rest of the cards are kind of mediocre, but those are quite powerful ones to consider. And looking at green, the curve is real bad, and there's nothing great going on there. I take the quickest glance ever at our colorless cards, and it's just some really bad mana fixing. And then the multicolored cards, again, solid if we end up in those colors, but nothing that really pushes me in a direction outside of Sauron. So I do take a look at blue, black, red here to see if I could scrap something decent together for a Sauron build. And it does look like I could, but the curve would be pretty bad. There's also just not a ton of excellent non-creature spells unless I go for a full 3-color in a deck that, well, in a sealed pool that doesn't have particularly good mana fixing. So I think the deck would be pretty inconsistent, but it would have access to that very powerful Sauron at the top end. So the other deck I wanted to take a peek at was white-black. I think white and black are the strongest colors in this sealed pool that we've opened up, and they let us play with Frodo, and I do like the look of this a lot better, so I immediately just start diving in here, taking a look at every white and black card together, see how it looks all spread out like this, and start cutting some of the more narrow cards like the combat trick there, the you cannot pass. Start putting some other stuff into the maybe pile like Esquire the King that's only good if we have a real aggressive curve. The Blade that's only good if we have a lot of humans. Slip on the Ring's really situational. I have not liked that card a lot. Second Breakfast is another situational combat trick. Rosie Cotton's only good with a lot of tokens. Mordor Trebuchet's only good with a ton of amass. Don't love main decking the Black Breath. And the Snarling Wargs, those are good cards. The problem that I had with them here is that they would be our 5th, 6th, and 7th 4-mana card, so we would be really high on 4-mana stuff. So I do decide to put Rosie Cotton back into the deck, because I did take a glance at the amount of token production, and it is pretty solid, but we do cut most everything else in the maybe pile, except Banish from Adoras, because I do need some amount of removal in the deck, and that's one of the biggest weaknesses. And that's one of the biggest weaknesses with our black-white color pair, so keep the Banish in. I cut one of these Haunts because I am still at 42 cards, so I need to cut a little bit more. And 3 Haunts seems like a little bit overkill. 2 seems plenty to me. We still have 3 1-mana creatures doing that. So we cut a Haunt to the Dead Marshes. We've got 2 land cyclers with Troll of Khazad-dûm, so I go ahead and cut a Swamp as well. And that pretty much makes the deck. This was kind of weird. It just kind of cut my Nimble Hobbit in the middle because the deck builder's bugged right now. So I just put the Nimble Hobbit back in, take another glance at the other white and black cards in the sideboard, take a look at the sealed pool as a whole, just be certain that I think white-black is the place I want to be. And I'm pretty certain on it. I go ahead and wrap it all up, give it a deck name, and that is the final look at our deck. But we are going to get right into the gameplay here, and we will be watching it back in double speed since I did take my sweet time to deliberate, as I do most of the time, but especially in competitive events like this. We slam down a turn 1 Haunt to the Dead Marshes. Our opponent goes for a turn 1 Mirkwood Spider. So black-white versus green-blue from our opponent. Decided not to attack with the Haunt there because I definitely wasn't going to want to block the Death-Touching Spider with our 1/3. So I like just keeping the damage off of us, because with a hand like this, with Samwise, Sam's Desperate Rescue for recursion value, and the Troll for a big late game play, I do want to try to make the game last a while and play some big finishers late. That does change pretty quickly when my opponent drops a Palantir of Orthanc, because that is going to keep getting a counter on it, and then either mill our opponent equal to the counters on it, or let them draw a card. If we mill them equal to the counters on it, we lose life equal to the mana value of everything that we chose to mill. So the longer the game goes on, the more likely we are to die if we choose to mill our opponent. So the longer the game goes on, the better the orb gets, because eventually it turns into them just scrying 2 and drawing a card every turn, which is massive. It's almost like drawing 2 extra cards every turn. Not quite, but scry 2 plus draw is really, really big, so we want to do everything we can to be as aggressive as possible and put as much pressure on our opponent's life total as possible. Now we're definitely in the aggressive position. So that got us to slam down a Samwise for no value just to get the Ring Bearer going. And then it's going to let us start drawing a card and discarding a card every turn to set up our draws. We discarded our 6-drop just to try to draw more early aggro cards and keep beating them down. We've gotten them down to 10 life now, and we can Desperate Rescue our Nazgul back. This way, the Desperate Rescue puts the ring to level 3, the Nazgul puts the ring to level 4. Once the ring is level 4, we get to start dealing an extra 3 damage to our opponent whenever our Ring Bearer deals combat damage to them. So we are just doing everything we can to put as much pressure on their life total as quickly as possible. So, taking mills several turns from the Palantir, and that card single-handedly put us down to 7 life now, so we can no longer afford to have the Palantir mill our opponent. We have to let them draw cards now. So I played the Nazgul here. I kept the Ring Bearer on the Nimble Hobbit since it's the lowest power creature that we have, the most likely to repeatedly get in for damage, but I think I should have moved the ring over to Samwise, because their only creature on board right now is 3 power, so even Samwise would be able to connect, trigger the 3 life loss, and Samwise would just kill them in 2 swings, because it would single-handedly put them down to 5, another attack with Samwise would hit them for another 5 and they would die, so we would have hit them for 1 more damage if I moved the ring over to Samwise, so I think that should have been the play here. Our opponent did follow up with removal to lock out our Nimble Hobbit. They would have locked out our Samwise if we put the ring onto him. So either way, it kind of balanced out, because since Samwise isn't pacified, we hit for another 2 damage here instead of another 1 damage from the Nimble Hobbit. So it kind of balanced out to the same amount of damage either way we did it, weirdly enough. Our opponent does play a Hithlane Knots to tap our Nazgul, scry 1 and draw a card, but we still put them down to 3 life on board with several creatures. Plenty of cards that could get them out of this, though, if they've got some big stuff. They do have a big thing. It's a Watcher in the Water, but it's a gigantic creature that enters the battlefield tapped and stays tapped for a little while, so not going to do anything here. We are going to be able to just attack for lethal, so our opponent does scoop them up, so we started things off 1-0. Nice and easy. Game 2, I gotta take a mulligan there right off the bat. Just nothing but swamps in the opener. Our 6-card hand looks pretty good, though. I get rid of a land here because we have the Haunt the Dead Marshes to scry 1 and the Mortar Muster to draw a card. Both of those dig us a card closer to a land, and luckily we did immediately scry into a land off the Haunt. Traded off the Haunt into one of their 2 Rally at the Hornburg tokens, just to stop as much early game damage as possible. Especially since the Haunt can easily come back later. We've got 2 Legends in our hand already, and any times that the ring tempts us, we can bring the Haunt back as well. So drop the Rosie, get in for 2 damage with the army, see what they've got coming up. And here's a Gimli, counter of kills, send in with a 1/1. So we definitely want to have some 3/3s on board, some kind of 3-power blockers to deal with Gimli. But Bill the Pony is actually a sick combo with Rosie here, because if we play Bill, we get 2 food tokens. So we can make Bill basically a 5/5 and our army a 3/3. So if they don't have a removal spell for Bill, then we have a 5/5 to block their 4/3 and they can't attack at all. If they do have a removal spell to kill Bill, we still have a creature that's big enough to trade into Gimli. So really like the line of Bill here. Isn't going to play out super well for us though, because Ent's Fury is probably the best removal spell for them in this position, since not only does it kill Bill, it gives Gimli +1/+1 this turn to get in for more damage, and +1/+1 permanently, so 3/3s are not big enough to trade into Gimli. So we need to buff up that Orc army again if I want to have a 4/4 to trade into Gimli. Life totals are now 9 to 15, but we have 3 food tokens on board. We're going to have to keep committing cards to the board though. We need to play a bunch of creatures to affect combat rather than save our mana just to gain some life. So the food isn't going to be super relevant right now. And I think I played this game out a little too defensively. I don't think our 3/3 army is really helping us block at all here, so I probably should have tried to chip in for 3 damage there. I highly doubt they would have blocked with the Marauder. But I guess the 3/3 would block the Marauder fine. I've got the 4/4 to block the Gimli, but if they attacked with Gimli plus Marauder, then I wouldn't have great blocks for it. But that was a potential opportunity to get an attack in, and then here was an even bigger one. I think I should have made Protector of Gondor the Ring Bearer here, because a 4/4 Ring Bearer on this board state can't get blocked by Gimli, can only get blocked by 1/1s and the 1/1 double strike. So attacking with Protector, we probably start chipping away at some of their 1/1s or double strikers. I doubt they go for like a triple block there for the trade. So that was another opportunity to maybe hit for some damage. Just trying to see the minor little lines where we could have pushed in a little bit to kind of change the course of the game in the grand scheme of things. So maybe have our opponent down to 11, maybe have them down to 9, or I guess 8 if we hit them for 3 and then 4. If we had changed those plays around. But another turn, we just want to drop a bunch of 1/1s so that we have multiple creatures that can block Moria Marauder as a Ring Bearer, because their Dundane Rangers that they played allows the ring to tempt them every time they play a land. So they then make the Moria Marauders where it can't be blocked by creatures with higher power, so we have to double block it with 2 1/1s to kill it. So that's why we went for Kerbane plus Haunt there, just play a bunch of 1/1s, make sure we've got the creatures to trade into the Moria Marauder. And we trade into it. Our opponent plays a Gloin, and then they follow it up with a Book of Mazarbul, and this is the problem here. If it weren't for Book of Mazarbul, I think our deck's really good at grinding things out, and we have tons of food tokens here. So that was kind of my game plan here. That's why I wasn't trying to chip in for a little bit of damage throughout. I was like, listen, we've got a bunch of good graveyard recursion. We have tons of value from the ring tempting us, getting our draw and discard from Ring Bearer attacks. If I can grind this game out and just make sure I don't die to some random tricks and stuff, and I just have plenty of blockers, I should be in a good position. That does not work out well, though, when your opponent has a card that's really good at breaking through board stalls, like a Book of Mazarbul. That's going to give their whole board +1/+0 and Menace 1 turn from now, and they have 2 more creatures to follow it up with, one of which kills one of our blockers, so now their board state is way more than big enough to kill me with Menace everywhere. So now I'm just desperately trying to find out how on earth I could possibly survive their whole board getting +1/+0 and Menace next turn. So I'm just going through a lot of stuff in my head. I've got a bunch of food, I've got a Hobbit I could play for another blocker if I need to stack up there. Could have returned a Haunt before I drew a card to scry, so I was trying to think what's in my deck. Are there any 2-drops that change the course of things where I should scry before my draw step? But now I'm literally looking through my deck list I'm just in full desperation mode. Like, there's gotta be something, right? Spoiler alert, there's nothing. We are so dead on this board, because not only is their board about to get plus and plus 0 menace next turn, but Gloin forces one of my creatures to attack in with the goad ability, so we have one less blocker, which means we can only block 2 creatures on the board right now. I have to play Hobbit if I want to block 3 of them, and then I only have the mana to eat 1 food token. So we needed to find some alternate lines earlier in the game. I think our best chance at victory was playing a little more aggressively earlier, because either we would have chipped in for a few points of damage and maybe found a big swing in, or we would have even better gotten them to chump block a couple times. Just a few chump blocks would be enough to majorly reduce the damage we were about to take from the Book of Mazarbul there. And we had some food tokens that we could have eaten after getting them to chump a few times to maybe survive the book and then try to grind it out after that. So I think that's a game that maybe could have gone differently, but it was a lot of just minor decisions stacking up. And yeah, I don't know, because there's definitely cards that would have punished us for taking more aggressive lines as well, so don't know about that one. Overall, though, I think it definitely could have been played out better. I just don't know exactly where and when. So this game's going great for us so far. Because we just got a really lucky draw. Our opponent dropped a Frodo, and then we drew into a Golem's Bite to immediately kill their Frodo, and then we drew into our own Frodo. So that all worked super well. However, now our opponent has a Nazgul down, so they've got a 2/3 Death Toucher. There's not much we can do to get around that. I go ahead and cycle our Troll to get a land, play an Eowyn, and make sure that we have 4 mana next turn so that we can drop a Protector of Gondor, or we can have Golem's Bite have the ring tempt us. We do draw into a 5th land, which means we have the mana to play the Haunt of the Dead Marshes to scry 1 and the Protector of Gondor. Just get a nice wide board state, and we're going to draw into a Samwise the Stout-Hearted, which is a solid value play. So I just keep that card on top, slam down the Protector past turn. Now our game plan is to just keep giving the Protector of Gondor first strike so it can attack right past the Nazgul, get some chip damage in that way. And our opponent drops an Eastmark Cavalier for another blocker. It's just a 2/2 though, so it doesn't really change things. A first striking Protector of Gondor still can't get killed even if they double block. So just hold on to the Samwise here for some value whenever they try to kill one of our cards. Chip in with the Protector past the turn. Turn 4, our opponent plays an Oath of the Grey Host. We both get a food token. Looked through my deck real quick here again, just to see how many things I had that would make me want to keep the food token. There's really only one card. East Farthing Farmer would be a little bit better if we had another food token, but Bill the Pony is the only other card that cares about eating food or sacrificing food, and Bill comes with 2 food anyway, so I decided to just eat the food, get that life gain, get that mana investment out of the way immediately, because the vast majority of games, it's going to be better to have eaten that food than held it back just for an East Farthing Farmer. So we had a really good draw again. We hit another removal spell to get their 2/3 out of the way, and our board is really good at attacking into a 2/2, so we just get to send in the whole team, giving our 2/1 first strike. Now we just get to Golem's Bite, so we can draw a card and discard a card when we attack, and just attack with everybody again. Just a really, really good position there, and that just ends the game, so we are 2-1 after that. Unfortunately, game 4 starts with 2 mono-colored hands in a row that are kind of forced mulligans, so we start with a 5-card hand. Gotta make some rough mulligan decisions here. I decided to keep 2 lands and get rid of my 4-mana card, so if I hit any land, I can cast everything in the hand. If I don't hit a land by turn 3, I can still play Eastmark Cavalier into Samwise. We still have 2 playable cards there. So our opponent starts with Golem into Uruk-hai Berserker, so they're doing some great ring tempts you stuff. I did not draw land here. I could have played Haunt of the Dead Marshes to scry 1 to try to dig closer to the land, Decided to hold on to Samwise and Reprieve here, so if they cast a good spell, I could Reprieve and draw a card trying to hit the next land. And if they attacked in, I could block, trade, and Samwise a card back. So they didn't go for any trades, so we just Reprieve when they finally try to cast a 5-mana spell to draw a card and try to hit the land off of it. We do hit the land, thanks to Reprieve digging us 1 card closer to it. So now that I have 3 mana up, I send in the Cavalier, because they didn't block last time I did that. I did miss 1 attack with Cavalier. I think I should have just attacked with it from the get-go, because if they blocked during our turn, we could have always just Samwised during our turn and got the Cavalier back, so missed out on 2 points of damage this game. I went for the Kerbane this turn to give me a 1/1 and a 2/2, so that our 1 card trades into 2 of theirs, and even though they use a combat trick to save their 3/2, our 1 Kerbane still traded into 2 of their cards. It just traded into 1 of their creatures and 1 of their combat tricks, which is a really good deal for us. When we start on a multi-5, we need to try to find as many 2-for-1s as we can to slowly get ahead in card advantage, and we're on the way. Our opponent is very, very high on lands here, and we're very low on lands, so we've got a bunch of plays still left in the hand, and they're running low. That being said, Ring Bearers are really strong at level 2, so that can make sure they don't flood out too hard, so we need to do everything we can to try to clear out their level 2 Ring Bearer. So I went for this here, that way if they had a sorcery speed removal spell, I could flash in the Samwise and get the double block on Erkenbrand. Unfortunately, they had an instant speed removal spell, so we don't get the kill on Erkenbrand yet. We finally hit the 4th land here, but I don't really have a 4-mana thing to do. We're just going to play 3 mana worth of cards this turn. Have to decide if I want to play an Uruk-hai Berserker or a Nazgul to have the ring tempt us to make Samwise level 2 Ring Bearer. And then attack with Samwise if I do that. To draw a card and discard a card. Or if I just want to play one of them as a blocker for Erkenbrand. There was a lot to consider there, because if I played Nazgul first and Nazgul stayed on the board, then I could get a counter on Nazgul, play Uruk-hai Berserker, get a counter on Nazgul again. But we knew they had a removal spell in hand, so that's why I just went for the Uruk-hai Berserker first, because Nazgul's a better creature later. Well, it's just a better creature than the Uruk-hai Berserker in general. So I saved the Nazgul in hand because I knew that whatever we played there to try to block Erkenbrand was going to draw removal from our opponent. So another great turn for us. We get to cast Eowyn to get a Vigilant attack with Samwise to draw a card, discard a card. And we get to play this Eastmark Cavalier because we did hit the 5th land, and I decided to discard Nazgul there because Troll of Khazad-dûm is going to be the land for the Voracious Fellbeast, or it's going to be another 6-drop so that we can play Fellbeast and Troll of Khazad-dûm. So kind of a hard decision on what I wanted to discard there after that draw and discard, but it panned out well for us. We hit the 6th land, so now we just have a Voracious Fellbeast and a Troll of Khazad-dûm. I go for the Fellbeast first, so I immediately have a blocker for Mirkwood Bats, and I can start chipping in for 4 a turn. Our opponent drops a Golem and a Haunt of the Dead Marshes, and with Golem and Haunt of the Dead Marshes, those 2 cards kind of combo together, where the Haunt can come back from the grave when they have a legend on board, the Golem can come back from grave by sacrificing the Haunt. So we don't really want to offer too many trades on the ground and everything, so I'm kind of just all in on Voracious Fellbeast in the sky right now against Golem Haunt of the Dead Marshes combo. I'm just setting in for that flying damage. And here's where I kind of go into the think tank about it, like, is it even that good to send the troll in? And I think, like, it's fine, but again, 2 graveyard recursion cards with Haunt of the Dead Marshes and Golem, and they synergize well together. I decided to just get the flying damage in. Our opponent cracks in with Mirkwood Bats, we get our other Haunt back, get rid of this Nimble Hobbit. Draw for turn, we hit an East Farthing Farmer, which is immediately lethal in the sky alone, but I do decide to attack with everybody in case they have a removal spell for the flyer. We can still get in some good damage here. They can triple block the 6/5, kill like a 1/1 and take 3. Drew a card, discarded Rosie so that I could have 4 mana up so I could eat both of my food tokens, because that way, even if they somehow survived that, they couldn't like crack back and kill us. So worked out well for us. They didn't have anything to hand. We just killed them in the sky. And we go 3-1 heading into game number 5. Now, game 5 opponent starts with a turn 3 Bilbo against a slower hand from ours. So they're on a play with turn 3 Bilbo. We're on the draw with nothing till turn 3, which means we're already behind. Bilbo is a very good card. Bilbo has the ring tempt them when he hits the battlefield and when he hits, when he leaves the battlefield, when he hits the graveyard, when he hits exile, whatever you want to call that. So just already not a good position, because Bilbo plus Birthday Escape means they're already drawing and discarding a card every turn to set up their draw steps, and every time Bilbo hits us, they get a treasure token as well. So even if I kill Bilbo at this point with Banish from Adoris, they can just move the Ring Bearer over, try to get the draw discard on something else. I think I probably still should have went for the kill on Bilbo, because a 1-1 Ring Bearer or a 2-2 Ring Bearer is definitely easier to kill than a 1-3 Ring Bearer, and it would stop them from getting their treasure tokens. But my big concern here was I don't even like stop them from having a Ring Bearer by playing removal. But I can stop them from having a Ring Bearer by playing the removal spell and then also trading a creature off. Decided not to opt for that though. I just kill the +1/+1 counter card because, again, they're consistently having a Ring Bearer here, so the 3/3 that gets a counter when they draw their second card is going to get a counter every single turn. And then this pretty much seals it for me. Fall of Care Andros. Once they have 8 mana, they just have a repeatable removal spell on a stick. For 8 mana, they do 7 to a creature, and all the excess damage gives them an orc army equal to the excess damage, so we basically just have lost the game at that point. That game, the big mistake was I should have just bit the bullet and killed Bilbo. Don't know if it would have mattered in the long run. I think we would still lose to that Fall of Care Andros in the end, but it would have taken a lot longer because we could have attempted to go for some blocks and clear out the other Ring Bearer that Bilbo would provide them with. So definitely some misplays in both of our losses so far. Game number 6 is going great for us so far. Our opponent has cast literally nothing by turn 3, so we're just curving out and they're doing nothing. Great start for us. Turn 4, they have red, white, and black mana, so now they have access to probably anything in their deck. So it's been a very simple game for us so far. We're just curving out, getting aggressive. Our opponent casts a Bitter Downfall to kill Eowyn. Alright, we'll just chip in for all the damage we can, drop a Protector of Gondor, put as much power on the board as possible, and keep being aggressive here. Nazgul from our opponent, great card. We've been seeing a lot of that. Drawn to a Torment of Golem, decided to do that and see what's going on in their hand here, because they played nothing until turn 4, so there's got to be a lot of nonsense in their hand. They've got an Eowyn, which exiles a creature with higher power than Eowyn when it hits the board. And they have a Samwise, which they can flash in right now as a 2-drop, so I decided to get rid of Samwise here. That way I can still attack in with my 3/3, because otherwise, if I tried to attack in with my 3/3, they trade Nazgul into the 3/3, they Samwise Nazgul back to their hand, the ring tempts them, they play Nazgul, the ring tempts them again. It would just be a lot of good value to Samwise right there. They got to keep a bunch of powerful cards because their hand was just a ton of valuable cards. But I think getting rid of the immediate play for them was probably the best line there. Again, it hurt. It didn't feel great. They still have an Eowyn in hand now. But I think it worked out fine for us getting rid of the Samwise there. And now we're just trying to get a really wide board state to go around all their blockers. Because we get to chip in for 1 every turn with the Haunt of the Dead Marshes. And if we ever have, you know, I guess 8 more creatures than them, then we can just hit them for 8. Our opponent plays really strange here. They play a Fiery Inscription, which does not impact their blocks in any way. I guess they just wanted to set up their draw card and discard a card here. I'm looking through my deck here, seeing how many outs I have to just insta-kill them if they play a creature post-combat. I don't have a lot of cards that would do it, but I'm looking at this board state and I'm realizing if they don't play a creature post-combat, we just kill them immediately. So yeah, I decided to just do the all attack, and they didn't have a creature or an instant post combat, so we do get the insta kill there. So that was a really weird ending to that game. I think it maybe could have gone differently if they just stayed defensive there. But again, I don't remember what else I was thinking of because we're watching these games in 2x speed, so it's a little hard to keep up, but it is what it is. We are in game a lot now. I believe we're 4-2 at this point, so we must be in game 7. Playing against the blue-black deck, we're doing our thing again, and this is what I love about picking colors with consistent curves and sealed. This is kind of how I chose my deck so quickly. You know, when I'm not doing live commentary, which I was playing through this as mainly just a practice event. I was going to do live commentary in my second run, but I mean, we'll go over things about that in the future. This is slight spoilers, but we'll go over why I didn't in the future. Why I didn't record a second run. But when I'm just playing a sealed event, just by myself for fun, I build my deck real quick because I know my preferences, and I really, really prefer running the consistent 2-color strategies, finding those 2 best colors, finding a good curve, and trying to punish slower strategies that might be dirtling around with different colors, might be very low on early game plays. And this is why we've seen several games like this where we get to turn 5 and we've got 2 1/1s, 2 2/2s, some synergies with Rosy Cotton on board, and our opponent just has nothing. So we just kind of get to start these kind of games at like a 6 to 10 life point advantage and kind of just still get to play a lot of strong cards because we're still playing our 2 best colors, even if we're not playing like 3-color splashy stuff, getting a bunch of bomb rares in here with Sauron or anything. So just kind of wanted to go over that a little bit. This game's been very, very simple so far. They just haven't played a ton of cards. So we've been beating down with our creatures, gotten them all the way down to 6 life. Now we're playing a Troll of Khazad-dûm. And that is why I got so aggressive with my attack last turn. I knew I had a Troll coming up, so putting them to 6 life, even if they have a food token, is really scary when we have a Troll coming up. So I did attack so aggressively last turn that we lost our Rosy Cotton, but I think it was worth it to me at the time. We only have a Build a Pony in the hand to synergize with it. We did draw into a Troll again, which was a super good draw for us. So we get to keep that must-be triple blocked pressure down, and then we just draw like an absolute champion. Hit a banish from a Doris afterward to clear out the 6/6. Now they have to triple block the Troll and eat the food to not die, but then very little they could have to survive another turn after that. They've got that isolation on top they can use on our Troll, but then they still take 3 damage from the rest of our board unless they have 2 mana interaction. They don't have the 2 mana interaction, so we're now 5-2. Heading into game number 8. This hand is luckily just an insta-keep right from the start, and we draw into a Frodo, which is slightly awkward, but still a good draw, because we didn't have anything to play on turn 2 anyway. Frodo would have been better on turn 1, but it's still better than not casting anything on turn 2. Now we have Frodo plus Eowyn working together. We've got some really good combos coming up, because once we have a Build a Pony on this board, we have multiple creatures with higher toughness than power, and letting them deal damage equal to their toughness is going to be really nice. So I go ahead and Swamp Cycle the 6-drop, get a Nazgul down, and make sure I have the 4 mana for Build a Pony next turn. Make the Frodo the Ring Bearer. I think this is another misplay here. There's just so many opportunities to find extra little chip damage in with Ring Bearers. Making Eowyn the Ring Bearer here would have chipped in for 2 damage, because then they couldn't block with Gloin. They could only chump block with their 1/1. So if I just had Eowyn be the Ring Bearer instead of Frodo, instead of going for like flavor points of always putting the Ring Bearer on Frodo, we would be hitting for extra damage here with the Ring Bearer on Eowyn, and that's pretty important. That would have stacked up pretty well. So another one of these just Ring Bearer placements misplays. So I don't have the 5th land for this banish. I've got the mana for the bill though, and I've got plenty of high toughness creatures, so I'm like, alright, let's just jam in. Do some really aggressive stuff, give the Nazgul first strike, send in with everybody. If they block Eowyn, then we can deal damage equal to Eowyn's toughness and wipe their board. They just can't block Nazgul at all. And they can't block Frodo well. So just a nice aggressive attack. Now, I think it might have been better to give Eowyn the first strike because that ability every combat step is really, really nice. But then Nazgul could 1-for-1 trade into Gloin, so we don't clear the whole board that way. So I'm not super confident on that. Our opponent has a Gandalf the Grey on the board. We don't have a treasure token or anything, so we can't just kill Gandalf. So we gotta just try to find as much damage as we can. So drop the East Farthing Farmer for 2 extra damage and another food, which means we could flip 3 creatures' power and toughness with Bill. And this is another line that I'm not a super big fan of. I think I definitely should have gotten super aggressive here and pushed in for a ton of damage, but I think I should have left 1 food token. I decided to just cash them all in for maximum damage, but I think leaving 1 food token behind would be good because we don't have any other food production in the hand, and this way, with a food token on board, Bill is like a must-kill threat. If I don't have a food token on board, Bill's just a 1-4 and they can leave him be. But, yeah, I think I should have left the food behind, let them be at 3 life instead of 2. And if we'd made those Eowyn attacks in earlier, where we hit them with a 2-4 instead of a 1-2, then they'd be down to 1 life right now, or they'd be down to 2 life and we'd still have a food. So here's Flame of Anor with Gandalf on board that's going to double up and be 2 removal spells. So they're going to kill Frodo, and they're going to kill the Nazgul. So if we still had a food behind, they would have killed Bill and Frodo, or Bill and the Nazgul, something like that. I think we'd be in a slightly better spot. Luckily for us, though, we just top deck land number 5. I'm going over the math in my head and just making sure, but we can just play land 5, play our 5-mana removal spell, attack with everybody, and 2 creatures will get in while they're at 2 life, putting them down to 0. So that is 6 and 2 after this game. Heading into the final boss. We do start off the final boss with a mono black hand that has multiple white cards in it, so we do kind of have to take a mulligan again for our final round. Start with a 6-card hand here, but the 6-card hand is juiced. I get rid of the 6-drop, but it's still got a Frodo, an Uruk-hai Berserker, and a Nazgul. That's a Frodo with 2 different ways for the ring to tempt us, and Frodo kind of counts as our turn 1 play and our turn 2 play, making sure we're doing some great stuff with our mana. We draw into an Eowyn, Lady of Rohan, and drop a Nazgul here. Make Frodo the ring bearer, get in for a couple more points of life gain. Frodo's not going to kill this thing, but I highly doubt they're attacking with the Spearmaster, so I'm just cashing in a little bit of life gain here. Our opponent drops a Scroll of Isildur. That's going to tap 2 of our creatures and stun them next turn, and then it's going to draw them a card for each tapped creature we have. We miss a land drop here, so we just go ahead and cycle a Troll. We can still play a 3-drop and cycle a Troll in 1 turn. Go ahead and level up that ring again, because that's going to buff the Nazgul, and it's going to let us draw a card and discard a card off of every attack. We have to choose if we want to make Nazgul the ring bearer or Frodo the ring bearer here. And since they have a 2/3 already to block Frodo all day long, I just make Nazgul the ring bearer, since that is the card that's going to keep attacking every turn. So that's going to give us our draw a card, discard a card value. Our opponent gets the stun going, then they play a Bath Song to draw 2 and discard. So if this game goes long, our opponent is going to win. They have played many pieces of card advantage here. So this is another game that we definitely need to get in the aggressive position. Our opponent sends in the Spearmaster. We cycle away the Troll again. Drop a Protector of Gondor for as many creatures as possible, and I do decide to hit them for 3. This is a big consideration here, whether or not you want to attack with the 3/2, because attacking with it does give our opponent another card, so do we want to let them pay 3 life to draw a card? And here, I figure they're already at such a massive lead in card advantage, I need to just deal as much damage as I can and try to close this game out despite the number of cards in their hand. So we'll just throw another card in their hand if it means lightning bolting their face. And that is the play that we make with the Uruk-hai Berserker attack there. So we've got them down to 12. They have so many cards they can play, but we have a ton of creatures on board, and we've nearly halved their life total. Our opponent's got to make some very hard considerations here, because this might be their final boss as well. They might be 6-2 in round number 9. They drop Knights of Dol Amroth. If they draw a second card in a turn, it gets bigger, but it's basically just going to be a 3/3. Then they pass the turn, so we've got a reprieve in our hand, which means we can play Eowyn, and we have a reprieve for whatever kind of combat trick or removal spell they try to cast during combat here. So we can set up just whatever attack works great for us on board, and we can know that it's going to resolve. So I go and attack with everybody but Frodo, and the reason is that they could just block Frodo with a 3/3 and kill it, which I really am not a fan of. This way all they have access to are trades or chumps. We get to draw a card and discard a card as well. Discard the Dunlin Crebain, because we want the reprieve right now, and if we hit a land, the Fellbeast is going to be very good. And then they cast an Improvised Club, sacrificing Wizard's Rockets to draw a card, which is luckily not their second card drawn for the turn, so it doesn't trigger the Knights. Plus, we can reprieve it back to their hand and draw a card ourselves, stop it from resolving, trade our 3/3s, put them down to 6. They've got one creature on board at 6 life against our very wide board state. But again, they've got a full grip. They've got 7 cards in their hand. They've got 2 extra mana this turn as well from the Bath Song. They drop a Willow Wind for a 3/4 flying blocker that also scries 2. They scry both cards to the bottom. And then they pass the turn. We draw into the 6th land, which is incredible for us. Consider playing around the counterspell here and going for Protector, but no, they're at 6 life. We're trying to pressure them and beat them before they unload their hand. We need to just play the most impactful plays. Go for the Voracious Fellbeast. See what they've got here. It's going to make them sack one of their creatures, which is enough to kill them on board. Our opponent decides to Improvised Club, sacking their flyer to kill a 3/4, smite the Deathless on another one of our creatures, let the Fellbeast resolve to kill their other creature. So, there's an empty board, we attack in for 5, put them down to 1, and they scoop them up. That is 7-2 for the Arena Open Day 1 event. And now, I will just say, apologies for the post commentary. I don't usually do this. It is a lot more work for me. But I do like to do practice runs every now and then, and I decided to do a sealed practice run for the Arena Open, and I won first try, so I guess we've got post-commentary today. I just didn't want to spoil that at the start of the video, but yeah, that's going to do it. Great run. It was a really, really great deck. I love when I open up a nice, consistent 2-color strategy, make things nice and simple. We had a lot of really good value here. The ring tempts you. Getting to that level 2, being able to draw and discard a card every turn is really, really good. We had a lot of 2-for-1 spells. Protectors of Gondor are 2 creatures off 1 card. Torment is a creature and a discard spell. Voracious Fellbeast is a creature and a removal spell. Lots of really, really good 2-for-1 grindy value with a nice aggressive curve. Just panned out really excellently for us. Again, certainly made some misplays in our losses, but the deck itself was fantastic. I love this deck build. I love the deck itself. And I had a great time in the Arena Open Day 1, but that is going to end the Arena Open Day 1 event. We just got the Day 2 token, first try, got our 5,000 gems back, and that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow, so stay tuned for that if you are interested in more competitive Magic Arena stuff. Tomorrow's video will be the Arena Open Day 2, draft number 1. If we win that draft, then the Arena Open Day 2 draft 2. Who knows? It's going to be a fun time, competitive best of 3, Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth draft. Stay tuned. Not much else to say, except that, as always, I'd like to thank my patrons, my YouTube members, for their support. If you've ever wanted to financially support the channel at all, this is the best month to do so, because YouTube is offering a bonus to creators who get 30 or more YouTube members. So $1 this month will go a very, very long way if you want to check out the join button below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.